Good morning, students. Welcome back to you all after winter vacation. Today I am going to teach you the 7th chapter of your English literature book, and the topic is A Visit to Cambridge. Dear students, this is the story of a meeting between two extraordinary people, and both of them are disabled. Stephen Hawking, he is one of the greatest scientists, and he was suffering from a form of paralysis that confines him to a wheelchair. And the second one is Firdaus Kanga. He is a writer and a journalist, and when he was born, at that time he was born with brittle bones, delicate bones, and that was taken care to break easily when he was a child. Like Hawking, Kanga also moved in a wheelchair. Both of them were unable to move. So, the two great men exchanged thoughts on what it means to live life in a wheelchair, and on how the so-called normal people react to the disabled. We have to read in this story. So open your book at page number 100 and just concentrate your mind and listen to me very carefully. Cambridge was my metaphor for England, and it was strange that when I left, it had become altogether something else, because I had met Stephen Hawking there. The writer is saying that Cambridge was his metaphor for England. Means Cambridge was just like the England for him. Cambridge was his another name for England. And it was very strange that when he left, at that time it had become altogether something else, because he had met Stephen Hawking there. Okay? It was on a walking tour through Cambridge that the guide mentioned Stephen Hawking, poor man who is quite disabled now, though he is a worthy successor of Isaac Newton, whose chair he has at the university. When the writer Firdaus Kanga, when he was on a walking tour, when he was moving on his foot, at that time the guide told about Stephen Hawking, and he said that he is quite disabled now, though he is a worthy inheritor of Isaac Newton, and now he has taken the chair of Isaac Newton in Cambridge University. And I started because I had quite forgotten that this most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist, the author of A Brief History of Time, one of the biggest bestseller ever, lived here. The writer is saying that he was on walking tour, and he was told about Stephen Hawking by the guide, and he quite forgot about this thing. He started his tour, and he had forgotten the most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist. Astrophysicist means the scholar of astrophysics, branch of physics dealing with stars and planets. He forgot the most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist and the author of the book A Brief History of Time, and this book was one of the biggest bestsellers at that time. Okay? When the walking tour was done, I rushed to a phone booth and, almost tearing the cord so it could reach me outside, phoned Stephen Hawking's house. When the walking tour was done, when the walking tour had been completed, at that time Firdaus Kanga, he rushed towards a phone booth, he pulled the wire of that telephone, and he made a call to Stephen Hawking's house. There was his assistant on the line, and I told him I had come in a wheelchair from India. Perhaps he thought I had propelled myself all the way to write about my travels in Britain. When Firdaus Kanga, he phoned, then the assistant of Stephen Hawking was on the line, and Firdaus informed him that he had come in a wheelchair from India. But the assistant, perhaps he thought that he had pushed himself all the way to write about his travels in Britain. I had to see Professor Hawking, even 10 minutes would do. He added that he wanted to meet Professor Hawking, even 10 minutes would be sufficient. Half an hour, he said, from 3:30 to 4. The assistant of Stephen Hawking said that he would be given half an hour, and the timing is 3:30 to 4. Okay? And suddenly I felt weak all over. And at that time, the writer is saying that he suddenly felt weak. Growing up disabled, you get fed up with people asking you to be brave, as if you have a courage account on which you are too lazy to draw a check. He is saying that when you have grown up disabled, when you are handicapped and you have grown up, and the people are always asking you to be brave, at that time you get fed up. And it is just like that, you have a courage account on which you are too lazy to draw a check. Means when you are handicapped, you are disabled, and people are saying to be brave, at that time, that person who is handicapped, who is disabled, he gets fed up. The only thing that makes you stronger is seeing somebody like you achieving something huge. And the only thing that makes you stronger, the only thing that makes that disabled stronger, that is what? To see somebody like him. And he has achieved something huge. Means when the disabled persons are asked to be brave, at that time they get fed, according to the right. But the things which makes them stronger is to see somebody like him. Then you know how much is possible, and you reach out further than you ever thought you could. And after that, when you have seen the people like you, and you have seen the people achieving something huge, at that time you know how much is possible, how much something is possible for you, and after that you reach out further than you have ever imagined, you have ever thought. Okay? I have not been brave, sad as disembodied computer was the next afternoon. I have had no choice. Stephen Hawking, he was unable to speak. Whenever he wanted to say something, at that time he pressed the button and the words showed on the screen. So the bodiless computer voice said, I have not been brave because I have had no choice. Surely, I wanted to say, living creatively with the reality of his disintegrating body was a choice. Surely, the writer is saying that he wanted to say that to live creatively with the reality of breaking down body was his choice. He wanted to ask that he was living creatively, and he was living creatively with the reality of life. And his body was breaking down, and that was that his choice. But I kept quiet because I felt guilty every time I spoke to him, forcing him to respond. but the writer is saying that he kept silent because he felt guilty every time whenever he spoke to him, because he thought that he was forcing him to reply, he was forcing him to respond. There he was tapping at the little switch in his hand, and what did Stephen did at that time? He pressed gently at the little switch in his hand. He was trying to find the words on his computer with only a bit of movement left to him, his long pale fingers. Only there was the movement in his long pale fingers, and by pressing gently on the little switch, he was able to speak, he was able to show his feelings, to tell his feelings. Every so often, his eyes would shut in frustrated exhaustion, and every often, his eyes would shut in disappointed tiredness. And sitting opposite him, the writer was sitting opposite Stephen Hawking. He could feel his anguish. The writer is saying that I could feel the mental pain of Stephen Hawking. The mind buoyant with thoughts that came out in frozen phrases and sentences stiff as corpses. The writer said that he could feel his mental pain. He could feel his active mind. He could feel the thought that was coming from the very stiff, from the very hard, just like the ice. And his sentences were as stiff, as hard as the dead body. And the words that came, his mind was active, and the words that came, it was coming just like it was from the frozen ice, and his sentences that was coming, the sentences were as stiff, as hard as the dead body. A lot of people seem to think that disabled people are chronically unhappy. I said, I know that's not true myself. Are you often laughing inside? He said. He asked the question to Stephen Hawking. A lot of people seem to think that disabled people are all the time unhappy. The writer said, I know that's not true myself. The writer is saying that he was knowing. He knew this fact that it was not true, but he asked if he was often laughing inside. About 3 minutes later, he responded, I find it amusing when people patronize me. After 3 minutes, about 3 minutes later, Stephen Hawking replied that he found it amusing when people encouraged him. When people encouraged him, he found it very amusing. And do you find it annoying when someone like me comes and disturbs you in your work? The writer again asked if he found it annoying when someone like him came and disturbed him in his work. The answer flashed. The answer came on the screen. Yes. Then he smiled his one-way smile, and I knew, without being sentimental or silly, that I was looking at one of the most beautiful men in the world. The answer flashed on the screen, yes. And then he smiled, his one-way smile, without being emotional or without being foolish. And the writer knew that he was looking at one of the most beautiful men in the world. Okay? A first glimpse of him is shocking. When the writer saw him first time, it was shocking because his life is still photographed. Because he was like a photograph. As if all those pictures of him in magazines and newspapers have turned three-dimensional. It seems to the writer that he was like a still because all the pictures of him in magazines and newspapers that have turned clearly. Then you see the head twisted sideways into a slump, the torso shrunk inside the back of the shirt, the wasted legs. You look at his eye, which can speak still, and they are saying something huge and urgent. It is hard to tell what. And after that, you see that his head was turned aside, and it was also bent, and the upper part of the body, it was contracted inside the pale blue shirt and his vested legs. And when you look towards his eyes, then his eyes, it seemed that his eyes could speak still, and they are saying something very urgent and very huge, but it was very difficult to tell what his eyes were saying. You are shaken because you have seen something you never thought would be seen. You are perplexed to see Stephen Hawking because you have seen something you never thought, you never expected could be seen. Before you, like a lantern whose walls are one so thin you glimpse only the light inside, is the incandescence of a man. When he is before you, so you will see only the inner light of Stephen Hawking. He is like a lantern whose walls are wasted by use, and it has become so thin that only you glimpse, only you see the light inside, and it was the inner glow, it was the inner light of a man. The body, almost irrelevant, exists only like a case made of shadows, and his body, that was quite useless, and it was exists only like a box that was made of shadows. So that I know believer in eternal souls know that this is what each of us is, everything else an accessory. So the writer is saying that he was not the believer in immortal souls, but he knew that this is what each of us is. Means we must not think about our outer beauty. We should focus on our inner light. We should focus on others' inner light. We should not see the person's outer beauty. We should see the quality that is inside the person. The writer is saying that he is not the believer of immortal souls, but he came to know that this is what each of us is, and everything each of us is, and everything else an necessary, and everything that we do that is unnecessary, decorate. We should only focus on the inner beauty, on the inner light of a person, though he is able or disabled. Okay? What do you think is the best thing about being disabled? I had asked him earlier. The writer said that he had asked him earlier what, according to him, is the best thing about being disabled. I don't think there is anything good about being disabled. Stephen Hawking replied that he did not think that there was anything good about being disabled. I said, you do discover how much kindness there is in the world. The writer said that I think, and you have also discovered that how much kindness there are in this world. When you are disabled, then there are so many people. They come to you and they show their kindness towards you. Yes, he said, yes. It was a disadvantage of his voice synthesia that it could convey no inflection. He said yes, means he accepted the fact. And it was a disadvantage of his voice that was produced by the artificial method. When he said yes, it was a disadvantage of his voice, and his voice was produced by what? An artificial method, and it could easily send. There was no rise and fall of the voice, only it was coming on the screen. No shades or tone. There was no tone, there were no shades in that voice. And I could not tell how enthusiastically he agreed with me, enthusiastically with Jill. And the writer is saying that I could not tell how enthusiastically he agreed with me, how he agreed with me with Jill, I could not answer. Every time I shifted in my chair or turned my wrist to watch the time, I wanted to make every one of my 30 minutes count. I felt a huge relief and exhilaration in the possibilities of my body. Every time. The writer is saying that every time I shifted in my chair or I turned my twist to see the time, to watch the time, because I wanted to make every one of that 30 minutes very important. And I felt a huge relief and acceleration, means extremely joy in the possibilities of my bodies. When I met Stephen Hawking, at that time I felt a huge relief and there was a extremely joy, and I got the possibilities. I thought that there are too much possibilities in my body. How little it mattered then that I would never walk or even stand. And when I thought that I am full of possibilities, there was when I saw Stephen Hawking, at that time I felt, the writer is saying that he felt that there are so many possibilities in his bodies. At that time, it did not matter then, it did not matter that he never walked or he was unable to stand. Man, it was very little thing that he was unable to move or he was unable to stand. He thought that he had so many possibilities in him. I told him how he had been an inspiration beyond clips for me and surely for others, that thought helped him. I told him that how he had been an inspiration beyond the world, that you are my inspiration. This word has no meaning, it has lost its meaning. Only I know that how much inspiration he provided when I met him. And surely for others, I asked him, did that thought help him? No, he said. And I thought how foolish I was to ask. When he replied, no, at that time, the writer is saying that he thought that how foolish he was to ask. When your body is a claustrophobic room and the walls are growing narrower day by day, it doesn't do much good to know that there are people outside smiling with admiration to see you breathing still. He said no. And he also said that when your body is claustrophobic, means when your body is like a very small and suffocating room and the walls of that room are growing narrower day by day, at that time it does not do so many good things to know that there are people who are outside smiling with admiration to see you alive, to see you breathing still. Means when your body is just like a small room and the walls of that body are going narrower day by day, then the outsiders, they are not smiling in the admiration of you and they did not want to see you breathing still. Is there any advice you can give disabled people? Something that might help make life better? The writer again asked a question, that is there any advice? He asked if there was any advice he could give disabled people that might help to make their life better. They should concentrate on what they are good at. I think things like the disabled Olympics are the best of time. He said that the disabled, the handicapped should concentrate on what they are good at. Only they should concentrate on what they are having. They should only concentrate on what they are good at. And he said that he think that things like the disabled Olympics are waste of time. Means he gave the message to the disabled, to the handicapped, that they do not need to take part in Olympic Games. They should only concentrate on what they are good at. I know what you mean. The writer said that he knows what he wanted to convey, what he wanted to say. I remember the years I had spent trying to play a Spanish guitar, considerably larger than I was, and how gratefully I had unstringed it one night. He said that he had remembered the years he had spent trying to play a Spanish guitar, very much larger than he was, and how very happily he had broken that guitar one night. The half hour was up. Now, the time that was fixed to meet, it was up, and he said that I think I have annoyed you enough. I said, grinning, thank you for Firdaus Khan. He said that he had annoyed him enough. He said, showing his teeth, smiling, stay, I waited, have some tea, I can show you the garden. Then Stephen Hawking said, stay, take some tea, I will show you the garden. The garden was as big as a park. When both of them went towards the garden, went into the garden, there the garden was as big as a park. But Stephen Hawking, he covered every place, making a sound along in his motorized wheelchair. He moved all the places with his motorized wheelchair, and I dozed to keep out of the way. And the writer, he skipped himself to keep out of the way. He was also surprised. We could not talk very much. The sun made him silent, the letters on his screen disappearing in the glare. There they did not talk so much because the sun had made him silent, and the letters which was coming on his screen, that was disappearing because of the glow. An hour later, we were ready to leave. After an hour, both of them were ready to the writer was ready to depart. I did not know what to do. At that time, the writer is saying that he did not know what he should do. I could not kiss him or cry. He did not kiss or he did not cry. I touched his shoulder and wheeled out into the summer evening. Well, I touched the shoulder of Stephen Hawking and I went out from there. I looked back and I knew he was waving, though he was not. I looked back and I knew that he was waving his hand, though he was unable to move his hand. Means he was waving with his hand. Watching him, an embodiment of my bravest self. After watching him, there was an incarnation, there was an expression of the bravest in myself, the one I was moving towards, such the brave person towards whom I was moving, the one I had believed in for so many years alone, and the only one person in which I had believed. I knew that my journey was over for now. The writer said that there was an incarnation of the bravest soul, the one person towards whom he was moving, the one person he had only believed in him for so many years alone, and at last he knew, he accepted that his journey was over for now. Okay, students, that's all for today. Write over